that polio affects my day-to-day life is completely different now to when I was younger. Being that, I was a child, I had no idea what was going on. And even though I'd always had polio, it was the very first time that I actually had to deal with it until I had to go to school. I was always with my parents, so anything I needed, they were able to provide it for me. But I remember having to get around school. My primary school had stairs in order to get to the classrooms. At one point, I had 2 different helpers. So there would be somebody to the front of me and somebody to the back of me, just to be able to support me, because I was still waiting at this point on my caliper and crutches. And then once I did have them, that I would be able to be confident in being able to use them and feel as though I was independent and able to move around freely by myself without having to always make sure that somebody was there. Nowadays, the way my polio affects me is that, well, I can't run for the bus, which, having seen people run for the bus and miss the bus, I'm glad that I'm not actually able to do. But it's frustrating at times because obviously, being the popular lady that I am, having friends here at home in London and abroad, sometimes I feel as though I might be holding them back sometimes, and not necessarily that this has been said to me in any way, but it's just something that you're always thinking about, like, oh, we would have been able to make that train if it wasn't for me. We would have been able to see this tourist attraction if it wasn't for me. But I've been getting better at being able to deal with it. But it's just, the way that it affects me is not so much the things that I can't do, because I've gotten so used to my crutches and my calipers that I do feel quite confident in them. But it's just making sure that I know that I am enough, even with my disability, that even though there are certain things that I can't do, regardless of disability, there are certain things that a lot of people can't do. So that's how it affects me emotionally. Surprisingly, school wasn't actually that difficult, considering the fact that when I came over from Nigeria, I couldn't speak a word of English and I had polio. So I had this disability to contend with, and I also had to contend with the fact that I couldn't speak the local language immediately. But kids are either really nice or really not nice. Thankfully, the ones that I went to school with, they were quite nice. And when I got my caliper and crutches, I think when I was around 7 years old, they weren't mean, but they were more fascinated. They wanted to know what it was actually called. What is a caliper? What does it do? How does it help me? And they wanted to help whenever we were about to do PE or something, physical like that. They wanted to help me take it off and, put it back on. And they wanted to time themselves to see how quickly they could do it. So in terms of primary school, it was actually pretty okay. But I think there was also an innocence there. They were just all kids. There wasn't, any difference. There wasn't anybody like, oh, I like this boy or I like that girl. There wasn't anything there apart from, I want to be friends with you one day and then I don't particularly care about you the next day. Kids are quite fickle that way. I found that actually having polio, well, not necessarily polio itself, but having the caliper and having the crutches, it allowed me to have more friends than I might have done had I not been disabled, because as I mentioned, I couldn't speak English at this point. So, and there was a fear that I might not actually know what was going on in the classroom. So it actually brought friends to me because they wanted to know, oh, who was this new girl that wasn't in reception but all of a sudden started year 1 with them, and what she was about, what happened to her leg and who she was. And I think a lot of my personality is wrapped around my disability. So I've always, as far as I can remember, I've always been the funny girl, because as long as people are making people laugh, as long as people are laughing, having a good time, then they're not always constantly worrying like, oh, I wonder what's under that caliper, I wonder what her leg looks like. And it's just a way for me to distract people, I guess. Yeah, but I've always had that since I was in school, so that was how I was able to get through primary school, secondary school, and good old life. Okay, wait, stop it. Wait, sorry, I've been looking up. Wait, stop that. I'm gonna have to cancel that. Excuse me. Hey, this is Jay from Jayonlife. Thanks for watching my video. If you've liked what you've seen, and even if you don't like it, make sure to click subscribe. You can find me on different social media under Jayonlife. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Google+. Be sure to check out more of my stories on my blog, www.jayonlife.com, and I hope to see you soon.